Good morning. Hi, everybody. We have 30 minutes that are going to pass by really quick. So I'm going to get started. Thank you for coming to the director's session for water. Really appreciate you being here. Just want to start by saying that our number one priority in the water division is to ensure that we provide you with the tools, the financing, the grants that you need to be successful, to the extent that we have congressional appropriation for that. And we've got in the room a whole slew of my team in this table and other parts of the room that will chime in if I get something wrong, or that can you know answer any questions that you may have that I probably won't have answers to readily. So thanks for coming. uh, let's see, next slide please. I've got 6 topics to cover with you in the next 10, 15 minutes, centered around programmatic funding and policy development coming down the pike. So I wanted to share some of those highlights with you. Next slide, please. Because government to government consultation is a fundamental thing that we do at EPA, and it's really a trust responsibility that we owe to all tribes. It is a super important thing that we do at EPA. So one of the things that I wanted to share is that we have developed internal procedures on how we consult with tribes. Part of this is to ensure that we get better at it. I'm not going to pretend that we're really excellent at it. We're still learning as we go, and we invite tribes to remind us and to help us, be better at it. But with that said, internally we have standard operating procedures. That's the hard to read page that you see up there in the graphic. That really sets the standard for how we are going to consult on what issues, and really the message in that procedure is that we will aim to consult more than less, and really make as a concerted effort to offer consultation to tribes on all of our internal actions and any actions that any of our states take that may have impacts to tribal interests. So I wanted to share that with you. The graphic on the right, if you can see it from back there, just shows in our past 2 fiscal years how many offers of consultation we made on the various programs, whether it's water quality standards, permits, and other matters that we thought would be of interest to tribes in terms of consultation. The second column in each of the 2 fiscal years is how many of those offers were actually accepted by tribes. And we realize that, part of the consultation process is to make you aware of any federal actions that we're undertaking that may be of interest to tribes. So just because we send offers doesn't automatically mean that tribes will accept the offer. But we want to make sure that we make that as broad as possible. And so I'm just sharing this with you, not so much to, brag about it, but to make you aware of our internal process to get better at it. And the statistics is really for us to keep track of, is there a trend here or not? Next slide, please. Wanted to share a couple of funding slides. First of all, this is a snapshot of the fiscal year 23 funding for tribes here in Region 9. These are the continuing programs like the 319, the 106 programs, and then wetlands and the public water system supervision program. So about 17 million for these programs. The good news is there was a little small, modest uptick from the prior year of 3 million increase in fiscal year 23, which is always good. We don't like to see decreases at all, but rest assured we are advocating internally with our Office of Water to look for any opportunity to increase the allocation that goes to tribes across the board. So I really thank my team for helping me and helping Martha Guzman, our regional administrator, to advocate for tribal funding across the board. And we've been actually fairly successful on some fronts. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot of the infrastructure funding going to tribes. For fiscal year 23, we awarded about $35 million towards, I believe, 55 projects in Region 9 tribes. The large majority, of course, is the drinking water pot, followed by the clean water infrastructure set aside, and then emerging contaminants, and then a modest amount for our tribal border infrastructure tribes. The one thing that I wanted to mention in terms of a bit of good news there in our internal advocacy is that we were able to influence the Office of Water to reshape the formula that they use for allocating funding across the nation for tribes. So previously, the formula, which frankly was pretty outdated, it's been maybe 20 years, 30 years since they've really changed it. And it's resulting in quite a bit of an increase for Region 9 tribes moving forward. So we're really happy about that. And we'll continue to advocate for, more equity across the board in terms of how, the funding allocation is made inside EPA. So just wanted to kind of share that with you. Next slide, please. Wanted to share, talking about infrastructure and funding opportunity, mostly with respect to drinking water. We've got an allocation coming up of $57 million for drinking water and $12 million for wastewater for fiscal year 24. We have an open solicitation right now to entertain proposals from tribes for drinking water infrastructure across 3 primary programs: the base funding, as we call it, for existing infrastructure or to upgrade systems, for the emerging contaminants that were afforded through the bill funding, the bipartisan infrastructure funding, and then the lead service line work as well. And a lot of the details on these fundings, you should know we're going to have some of our team members in a session this afternoon that can walk you through a lot of the details there, but I wanted to highlight it here in case, just to kind of tease you and to make sure that, if you're interested in this, come to the subsequent session this afternoon for additional detail. And of course, for the wastewater, so I should say for drinking water, we typically do our own solicitation, and we, look at those proposals and then fund them directly. For the wastewater infrastructure, we of course work with the Indian Health Service in utilizing the sanitary deficiency system. I never get that one quite, SDS system. And so, anyway, wanted to just give you a snapshot of this and encourage you to come to the afternoon session for more detail. Next slide, please. Slide. There are a number of new requirements coming down the pike that you should be aware of, at least your utility should be aware of, with respect to the lead and copper rule revisions. And that includes that all of the systems will need to have service line inventory conducted about a year from today. And wanted to highlight that because only 20 out of the 275 drinking water systems have done so. A year is a year, but it's going to come pretty quick. But I wanted to make sure that that there are resources to help tribes complete these inventories. We have technical assistance providers. We have cash that can support conducting these inventories, which are required. And we don't want you guys to get in trouble for not completing these by a year from now. Secondly, I want to make another pitch. Every time I talk with the group, maybe annually, I always make a pitch for our PFAS sampling efforts. These are free PFAS sampling for drinking water systems that we have been offering for a couple of years now. I think about, how many? 93 systems have taken us up on that offer. It's completely free. It's to really to establish for the tribe a baseline picture of whether or not you have PFAS in your drinking water system. And then if you do, you know, at least being proactive, and we can work with you on whether you need to install, you know, a treatment, do some other, you know, things to abate any problems. And of course, this will assist with forthcoming requirements that will likely be triggered as part of the new rulemaking that EPA is working on PFAS, on developing a MCL for PFAS in terms of reporting. And then lastly, I did want to also encourage you to think about cybersecurity within drinking water systems. This is something that we are also offering free technical assistance to conduct, you know, these evaluations on your vulnerabilities to cybersecurity issues, and to make sure that you close those gaps if there are any. One of the things that we're going to be encouraging the systems to do in fiscal year 24 is that those be conducted as part of the sanitary surveys that are conducted in the coming years. So again, there are resources available for tribes to do this. Just reach out and encourage, if you are in touch with your drinking water program managers, let them know that this is available. Next, please. I'm rolling along. I usually take like 30 minutes just to do this. I'm almost done. Okay. Wanted to share in terms of important authorities that tribes can apply for and be granted. And you know this, but there are funding eligibility authorities. So for example, if you have authority under the 106 or 319 program, you then can be awarded funding to fund programs under those statutes. But more importantly are the water quality standards and certifications authority. And that's a higher lift, you know, higher bar to get there. But I think it's important to note that with the new 401 certification rules, it does afford tribes to come in for just certification authority, as opposed to both water quality standards and certifications. So now tribes can do one or the other, or both. But it also provides you with neighboring jurisdiction authority in case you need to weigh in on any potential permits that may be impacting, you know, incoming waters, tribal waters. So I highly encourage you to think about applying for this authority. It will afford you a seat at the table. It will provide you with additional, you know, authority to weigh in on some of these important issues. And as you can see, only 31 tribes have that authority right now. And so hopefully with the modifications in the 401 rulemaking that just passed, this will provide more flexibility for you to consider it. Because I understand there isn't more money that is available to take on these programs. So I get it. You have to make a choice. And so, you know, but this is a pretty substantial authority that you would be undertaking. And it's definitely something worth thinking about, you know, moving forward. I do want to highlight and congratulate Summit Lake and Salt River. I should have started with that, for getting new authority for water quality standards and certifications. And if you're in the room, we applaud you, please. So congratulations. And I know, I believe, if I'm right, Martha gave you guys the certificate at the last RTOC. Great. Well, congratulations. And we're always really happy to work with you if you're developing or thinking about developing a package for treatment as a sovereign authority. We want to work with you. So don't hesitate to ring. Next slide, please. Final slide. I did want to apprise you of some upcoming rulemakings that are very important and that you're probably aware of, but just want to make sure you are. First is the drinking water MCLs for PFAS. And so as you may remember, we proposed establishing MCLs for 6 PFAS compounds. We got a lot of public comment on that, and we do expect to finalize that rule ideally by the end of this year, more than likely early 2024. And so that's the plan right now. And, you know, we're pretty excited, and I hope that our Office of Water can prevail. All of the regions are participating in national work groups to support them, to assist them with implementation concerns, things like that. So hopefully the rule that will eventually be finalized will be as good as it can be. The other is the 401 certification rule that I mentioned. This was published back in September, and it is a final rule, but now the effective date is the end of November. And again, this provides more flexibility and more authority back to the states and to the tribes that was previously taken away in the prior rule. And I don't have to remind many of you that that was a very controversial, action that we took. And so I am glad that we have reverted back to providing more flexibility and more authority back to the states and back to the tribes on certifications. Two other ones that are equally important are the Tribal Baseline Water Quality Standards Rule. This one was published back in April. As a proposed rule, the public comment period closed. I think we did receive quite a bit of comments from the tribes. And so let me just say that this rule would essentially establish baseline water quality standards in about 80% of the tribes who currently do not have water quality standards on tribal waters. It would establish a baseline water quality standard for those tribes. It would not apply to tribes that already have water quality standards in place or tribes who opt out of the baseline rule. So if tribes do not want to, be part of the baseline rule, you can opt out. So there's a provision for that. And so, yeah, I think the big gap in the genesis behind this was that, we were hearing from many tribes that currently they were dependent on, whatever the state water quality standards are, coming into tribal waters. And sometimes it was fine, sometimes it was protective, other times it was not. And so this is really to close that gap so that there are baseline water quality standards for tribes that do not have standards of their own. And then lastly is the Tribal Reserve Rights Rule. And so this was also proposed, back in 2022. And this is really the premise here is that as part of the water quality standards rulemakings, not rulemakings, but setting of the standards, it would incorporate or consider tribal rights like, for example, sustained fishing, maybe gathering of aquatic plants, things of the sort that have been, tribal rights for many years. And we would consider those as part of the water quality standards process. And so, again, here the Office of Water expects to finalize that rule, if not by the end. Everything that the Office of Water hopes to publish, I should just say, is either by the end of this year or early 2024. And let me just say that if it's not finalized by April of next year, it's not going to happen this coming, administration. So I just want to kind of put that out there, that we are at a sprint to try to get these rules out the door. And so hopefully many of these will make it, but there is that caveat. So next slide. I think that's all I have. We wanted to leave as much time for you and to see if you had any questions, any concerns, any feedback. We're always looking for feedback as well on, if we're doing a decent job, if you need more of something, what else do you want to see in these presentations? We're always, open to any suggestions and feedback. So let us know.
Good morning. I have two questions. Actually, my name is Lisa. Oh, hi, it's Lisa Gover. I'm with Gila River Indian Community. My question was this: I wasn't really sure what you were talking about when you said tribal reserved rights. What you were talking about. Could you elaborate a little?
Lisa, yeah. So let me see if, because I'm going to probably muddle it. Any of our team members, why don't you clarify what that means?
So what the tribal reserved treaty right rule does is it sort of codifies in the rulemaking that water quality standards specifically need to consider tribal treaty rights. So tribal treaty rights associated with, say, fishing, or tribal treaty rights associated with cultural uses of water uses. So the final rule basically goes a step further and rather than just suggesting that those things need to be considered, in terms of requiring that where tribal treaty rights exist, the states or other tribes that are issuing water quality standards, that they have to consider and consult with tribes on those treaty rights, and those treaty rights have to be incorporated, or measures to protect the water quality to ensure that those treaty rights are continues to be sustainable, have to be addressed as part of those water quality standards. So it's just a kind of codifying that in a rule making.
I understand it's now not just treaty rights, but treaty and or reserved rights, but it's other treaty and other rights. Am I correct? The language has on the rule, proposed rule, has changed. Not just treaty rights.
I think, yeah, it's I am not exactly sure what's going to be in the final rule, but I think that it is tribal treaty rights and the other sort of reserved tribal rights that are sort of in that similar sort of area. Yeah.
And the reason I was asking was because a number of tribes in this area in particular don't have ratified treaties, so I'm looking for ways to the tribe I work for does, but others don't. The other thing I wanted to follow up on was you were asking how we can make things better. What dawned on me, and I'd asked this in the last time we got together, of the national folks who were talking about the baseline water quality standards, which I am not a fan, never have been. 25 years have been thinking that that's a really bad idea. What I'd like to do is hear what Region 9 has for the tribes that are in Region 9, as far as what are the WOTUS that are in Region 9 that the baseline water quality standards will apply to. And the reason I say that is because you were talking about how baseline standards would apply to tribal waters, but it's tribal waters that are WOTUS, right? So it's
Correct.
very
Correct.
limited amount of water in California. And that and so what I'd like to see is information on what water on tribal trust lands is WOTUS. You understand what I'm saying? Because I know there's some on the reservation that I work for, but I know there's not too many tribes in California that have WOTUS. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Lisa. Good questions. And thank you, Russ, for answering the tribal reserve rights question. I think for your specific tribe, we can probably work on defining which ones are WOTUS, which ones are not. I don't know that we can venture to do that across all of the tribes. That's a big lift. But if anybody is interested in learning about that with their specific tribe, we can try to do that. So, yeah. Over, Kate.
I don't want to take away from questions, but I do want to take this time real quick to remind people in this water-minded room that there's WQX support available downstairs, one-on-one. It doesn't happen often, so we just want to make sure people remember that it's down there. Go talk to Adam if you want to talk about getting your water quality data into WQX. Okay, that's it.
Hopefully you all know what WQX is. What a quiet group. Oh, there you go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tribal Chairman Randy Lonigo for the Summit Lake Paiute Tribe. Just real quick, Tomas, I think you were talking on the additional funding and stuff that is coming down for fiscal year 2024. And so I just wanted to ask that across the board for that funding that is coming down for the tribes, is that across the board for all federally recognized tribes or non-federally recognized tribes? And then also, is there a match or is it at a competitive rate?
Okay, so I think you're referring to the FY24 slide that I had, which is really focused on infrastructure. And yes, this is only for federally recognized tribes. And it will be, the way this works is for drinking water, we have a request for proposals out right now. So that pot of 57 million will be for those projects that are submitted and then considered, and then that's how those projects will be funded. So any tribe can apply. And, we're more than happy to meet with any tribe to kind of walk through the different qualifications, requirements, and all that stuff. For the clean water, which is a smaller pot, 12 million, I think, something like that, that goes through the Indian Health Service SDS list. So any wastewater projects that you may have should go through that prioritization list and make sure you put them through that SDS process to be considered for funding. So those are the two main mechanisms for the infrastructure pot of money. The other pot, the first sort of for the 319-106, that's just the baseline, grant funding that we typically do on a year-to-year basis, and that those increases will be already factored into your grant allocations. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Oh, no matching required for the infrastructure funding. Thank you, Emmanuel. Lisa, another question?
First, I forgot to say yay on the new monies for 319. You guys worked on it a long time. We finally got it. We actually got some real money. Still not enough, but it's better than the little pittance that was coming to us. So here's my question: how are we able to do that? Was that the increase that you were talking about earlier that we were able to get? Your team working was able to get?
That is through a bunch of advocacy that we've been doing, and also actually I have to give credit to the National NTALC because they've also been pushing all of the program offices and headquarters to, when there's new money coming in, don't just spread it across evenly across the board. Try to consider tribes as a special, consideration. And in the 319 pot, what happened is, money materialized, and they decided, well, why don't we just allocate it all to tribes instead of trying to spread it across every sector? And that's what they did. And we applaud them for that too. So, yeah. So every little, win, we try to be in there and push them as much as we can. So, yeah, no, of course, you're welcome. And thank you for pushing us too.
We're
Are
all
we on
set to
time?
wrap up. Yeah. Well,
All right.
and also just to remind folks too that the Connor Biasua Junior Awards Banquet is going on next door for the lunch period.
Yes, so we don't want to keep you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it.